Welcome to the Creemore Winos, real conversations over a glass of wine. Welcome to the Creemore Winos. I'm your host, Jessica Ridding.
Tammy Millsap.
And Jennifer Hunt.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah. How's everyone's day?
It was good.
It was good.
It was
Jen,
good. Jen,
how was your day?
You know, it's been challenging, and I think that, which is okay. You have to have challenging days in order to also practice gratefulness too. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a reminder of that. But my daughter's sick. Oh, and so, of course, when you have to work and also have your child at home, it offers complexities and challenges.
Yes.
But looking forward to being here with the two of you has brightened my day. So turned a darker day into a brighter day.
Oh, so that's nice.
I know
glad.
It's so hard when your kids are sick and you're trying to manage everything, work, kids, snuggles.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right? So
you never feel great about anything that you're doing either. You always feel like you're operating at half speed, whether it's parenting or work, and it makes you feel frustrated.
Yes.
Oh, you are speaking to my soul. That is exactly it, in terms of I can't give myself 100% to any of it, and it is 100% frustrating. And I actually just said that to myself as I was driving here, and you get frustrated with yourself. Absolutely.
Yes. So hopefully now you can shake it all off, have a glass of wine.
Have a glass of wine. Cheers.
Decompress from the day.
Yes. And again, you ladies brighten my day, so I already feel so much better.
Good.
What today's about.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we decided on our last episode, we did a deep dive into some more personal information about Jen and the fitness and health journey that she has gone through, which kind of made us realize that it is really nice having other people get to know us a little bit more intimately. And we thought it would be helpful to interview each other. So I have volunteered as tribute for this episode.
Love it.
And I usually try to ask the questions, but I will let you guys ask the questions to me this time.
It's turning it around.
Yes.
I'm curious to know at the end of this if we're going to learn something new about Jess.
I know. Well, yes. I mean, you've been with her longer than I have. We've known her a long time, but you've definitely. So yeah, see if there's something you learn.
Yes.
That you don't know.
I know.
Oh.
It'll be a test of our friendship. Just kidding.
There's a quiz after.
Yeah.
I think the kickoff in all of this is give us a little bit of your background with your relationship with Creemore and like knowing that your family's from England. Why Creemore? What is that backstory?
Yes, I will go into it all because it does kind of circle all back to Creemore, as we know, since we're all sitting here today. So my parents both moved here from England, and they came for university. My dad came here to do law school. My mom went to teachers college, and England at the time, was competitive, really hard to get ahead. It was still kind of in the era of like move to America, move for a better life. There's so much opportunity. And so my dad actually came here one summer to pick tobacco and fell in love with it.
Wow.
So I can tell that I've already won.
You did win. I did not know that.
I did not know that.
Yeah. He came here on like a student working visa to pick tobacco for a summer.
Oh my goodness.
And fell in love and was like, I think that this is where we should go. Bobby, you've never been to Canada, but let's move there. And for some reason, she agreed to it, which is hilarious because both my parents were very close with their families. So they literally packed up and left their families behind and moved across the pond. And when they were looking where they wanted to settle, it was actually really sweet because they would do like weekend trips to different communities and kind of check out where they wanted to live. My dad always jokes because he wanted to live in Toronto. He wanted to live in a big city, and he clearly lost that battle. My mom grew up in the country with horses and wanted to kind of be in a place where she had space. She wanted to eventually get horses. She loved like small town living. And so when they came to Collingwood one weekend, they kind of saw the potential of the area and that it was really four seasons. And she ended up getting a job at the school in Creemore. So she applied kind of in different areas. And yeah, that's what brought them to Creemore. And at the time, Creemore really did not have a lot going on. He'll tell the story about like all of the stores on the main street being like shuttered up and boarded. There were no restaurants. There was, I think, a pharmacy, and that was pretty well it. It was pre-Creemore Springs Brewery. But it reminded my mom of the rolling hills of the area she grew up in, and she fell in love. So that was kind of the roots of how they ended up here. And I mean, Tammy, you probably know from growing up in a small town, like there are a lot of people when in our childhood who, you know, their grandparents, like it's very generational kind of area to live in, like farming community. And I will say that when I was growing up, like I did kind of feel a little bit of an outsider. My parents had, you know, these funny British accents. We would go to England all the time and we would come back with an accent. So we got kind of made fun of in a lighthearted way at school. And it was kind of one of those things where it was such a small town, but you kind of felt like you were on the periphery. Right. I still loved it, obviously. That's why I'm still here. And yeah, you both know this part of the story, but when my sister and I were in our teenage years, my mom passed away. And, you know, I tell that part of the story not for sympathy, but to kind of describe what we had gone through. We did live a very idyllic, charmed childhood. We skied, we had horses. Like I definitely had such an amazing childhood. And a lot of people deal with far worse tragedies in their life, but that was definitely something that was, you know, a bit of a tragic moment for us. Being, you know, I was 16 and Emma was 14, so we were quite young. And I think I may have told you this as well, but it also happened that all three of my grandparents died within the same year. So we kind of went from a very tight-knit family, tight with my grandparents, even though they lived so far away. We visited them regularly. They came over here all the time, to then obviously, you know, missing so much of that tight-knit network. It did feel like my life totally upended. So, yeah, but I think because of that, you know, we've talked about this before. You have to look at the silver linings. The parts that are hard in your life make you stronger, make you grateful for what you have. And that was definitely something that brought my sister, my dad, and I so much closer. You know, the three of us were really inseparable for many years, still are. And it always made me feel like Creemore was that memory of my mother and how much she loved it here, and the life that she created for us and for my dad and her. And then I moved to Toronto, as we have talked about before. I went to U of T for school and lived in Toronto for many years, but I always kind of had a bit of a foothold still in Creemore. We came back on weekends all the time, got together with our friends. You know, we loved being here with my dad. And every time we came home, we kind of felt like a little bit of relief. You know, we loved being in the city. Obviously, when you're younger too, there's, you know, a very active social life, and our work was really fun. And we had such a great time meeting new people and new friends and experiencing, you know, the bright city lights. But coming home also felt so natural. And after working for a long time in the city and still coming home on the weekends, eventually, you know, Emma and I started to kind of daydream about what it would look like to move home. You know, we were both kind of on the cusp of getting married to our husbands, and what would that look like? You know, it'd be the dream to be able to do something with the property. We loved having people over, having friends for dinner, or sitting up for a drink on the patio. And, you know, it seemed like such a glamorous job to grow flowers, and which we now know is not the case. But at the time, you know,
Yes.
oh, wouldn't it be amazing to grow peonies? And that sounds so peaceful, and we'll live in the country.
Yes.
And it was a bit of a pipe dream. But as we started, you know, continuing to snowball with this dream, we did come across some lavender farms that had popped up in different places. It coincided with the family trip that we took to the south of France, where we visited markets that were full of lavender sachets and bouquets and all these amazing products made from lavender. And we visited some farms. And the more we started to research it and what you could do with the plant, the more we started really getting excited about the potential of us doing something like this. Wow. And for background, both of my sister and I went to public relations school. So I went to U of T, and then I went to Humber College. Emma went to Humber as well. We ended up being in the same program at the same time, which is funny because, those who know us know that we are very similar. We get mistaken for each other often. We've kind of morphed into one person. So we both ended up in PR. We both worked at agencies, which I think that's how really Jen and I bonded, because we were in different disciplines of agencies, but it was very similar, you know, like high stress, but very creative, very social. Like it was a great position to be in your early career in Toronto. I met some amazing people, worked on global brands. And so to be able to kind of turn from that, a marketing corporate job in Toronto, and then all of a sudden starting to grow lavender and farm, and we knew nothing about it, was definitely a bit of a gamble. And for the early days, I was juggling both. So we were doing some seasonal work and planting lavender, and I would come home on weekends and be all in on the farm. I mean, we're so lucky because we talked my dad into letting us do it on his property. Our husbands were 100% on board. Yeah. They helped with so much of the heavy lifting in the early days, like driving the tractor, helping us plant. Really was a team effort. And then I also, you know, went on mat leave a couple times, and having that time off, even though I had very young children. So again, juggling a million things. It allowed me to kind of go all in on the lavender farm, and it started to really take off. We always tell the story of, you know, our opening year was the year of COVID, which, you know, was really hard, very difficult for a lot of businesses. We had done a lot of research. We were planning to open. All of a sudden, everything shut down. Yeah. But because of the regulations at the time and what we were offering was all outdoors, we were able to actually still open. And people came from all over the place in droves, and we were not expecting it. But it was amazing because the feedback that we got were that people were so happy to be able to be outside. Yes, we offered this beautiful scenic place where they could get a little bit of a reprieve from, you know, everything that was happening with COVID that was so stressful. So that's kind of where we ended up, and it allowed us to full circle come back to Creemore and live here full time with our children. I've now since left my PR job, which was a very difficult decision to make. I loved it, and I didn't want to let go of it, but it was getting to be a little bit too hard to hang on to both, as well as manage 2 small children. So that was hard because I loved the people that I worked with. I loved our company. I loved the job. But I loved being here and doing the lavender farming more. Yeah. And now we're here.
Good for you, because that is a big decision to make, to walk away from something that, I mean, you were doing so well at that in the city. And I mean, you were working on these huge brands. And so just to say, you know what, it's time, I have to make this choice, that's huge. I mean, I know you also did that as well, and you had to make a choice and be like, I want to be in Creemore with my family. But let's talk about that. Actually, you can both talk about that and just that decision to walk away and say, you know what, this is more important. Yeah.
It was hard. And I think where I netted out with it was I had gone back from mat leave with my second. We had a really successful couple of years at the farm. We had some dreams and plans of taking it to the next level. And I just really worried about being able to do that as well as maintain the level that I was working at in my day-to-day job while also being there for my family. Because as you just experienced, I had days of having sick child at home, and it's hard, it's stressful. You feel like you are kind of failing at everything, and I needed to something needed to give, and that was the one that needed to come off in order for me to be able to do the other things that I wanted to do and to be there. You know, Spencer had a really difficult time. He owns a restaurant in the community. He had, you know, a lot of stress related to COVID and the opening and the closing and rejigging the restaurant every which way. And so it was, you know, for our family too, needing to do that. And I know that we have had this conversation, you know, everything happens for a reason, and there's so much at play that works out in the end that you don't even see happening at the time. But when I left my job, it was probably only about a year later that my dad received his cancer diagnosis. And he has been through such a journey with his own health issues. He has gone through, you know, radiation, chemo, stem cell transplant, you know, all of the doctor's appointments in between, and really has struggled with his mobility, not being able to drive to get to these appointments. And, you know, there were several conversations that we had where, you know, he would say, I don't know what I would do if you were still working because you wouldn't have been able to drive me to all of these appointments. And it does make you grateful. Like, I'm so grateful that I was in a position to be there for him. And it all happened the way that it did. Because otherwise, you know, I would have had a lot of guilt of not being there for him.
For sure.
And again, he's such a big part of our lives. We're so close because of everything that happened, you know, with our family. And now he's our business partner. He is there with us with the Lavender Farm. He was the first person to jump all in on this crazy idea of starting a lavender farm and is our biggest supporter. So it does all happen the way that it's meant to, even if it doesn't always seem like that's the plan.
100%.
And because regardless, when you made the decision of leaving the corporate world, and then you would have made that decision regardless with your dad. You would have had to make the decision. And what's really interesting is you were ready at this point, where if it was the reverse, you might not have been ready. There might have been like this push and this pull of and so it's really truly fascinating that everything does happen for a reason. This is what was meant to happen. This was the moment that you were to prioritize and really take a step back and really look at the full big picture, not knowing the future of your dad. And it's crazy actually when you say it that way.
I know we've had this moment in the car quite a few times, and you know, I think it would have gotten to the point where, you know, I would have either left because I would have felt so guilty and and I wanted to be there for him, or he would have asked me and then he would have carried the burden of that guilt. Either way, we both would have been feeling horrible, even though we would have done it for the right reasons. And at least, you know, in such a horrible circumstance and him dealing with what he's had to go through, at least that's something that we haven't had to worry about because it had already been set in place that I was there for him. So we're lucky. And, you know, I think everything that has happened, that's what I always try to come back to, is how lucky we are, how grateful we are to live in such a beautiful place with our friends and family who, you know, and a lot of friends who are like family because we've known each other our whole lives. And we have a lot that we're very lucky for.
And it's crazy because there is something really magical about Creemore. Because so many of us, I know you stayed in the area, Barry.
Stainer.
You didn't go to Barry for a little bit? Okay, so I made that up. When we get to Tammy's interview, I'll learn a little bit more about Tammy.
Fill in some of the blanks.
I'm okay.
Where exactly do you live?
You never know where I've been.
What is, but a lot of the folks have moved to the city that are in our circle.
Yes, a lot.
But have come back. And so then I think that has to say with the people, that has to say with the community, and I think it's pretty magical. So, okay, so then going back on the creative route in terms of what you said goodbye to, and then also the evolution of the farm.
Yes.
And you alluded to this about the big plans that you had for the farm. So how has that evolved over the course of 2020 to where we are today? And are you getting those creative juices still with the evolution of the farm that you used to maybe have in the city?
So that's interesting that you asked that, Jen, because I think the moment that I realized this was the direction I needed to take was over Christmas break. We had some time off from work. It had been a very busy time, so I was grateful to kind of be able to take a step back from the day-to-day. And it also was an opportunity for Emma and I to kind of get together and chat about what our plans were for the year. And we were able to get those creative juices flowing. We had all these dreams, and I was so excited in that moment about what we were thinking of and planning to do. And that was when I realized this is what I need to pursue. I need to go in this direction. This is what's calling me. You know, you always hear, like, how do you know? How did you know?
I love that.
And when you have that moment of just realizing this is where I'm being pulled and I have to follow this.
Yes.
That was how I made the decision to leave my job. And part of that was, you know, we had this idea of doing picnics in the field and be able to offer an experience at a time on the farm when it's most magical, that golden hour when the sun is setting, the plants look like they're glowing purple. You know, you get those magical summer nights in the dusk, and to be able to have music playing and have a glass of wine, have something to eat. And that was the year that we implemented picnics for the first time. And we had an inkling that it was going to be successful.
Yeah.
We had done a kind of one-off picnic as a contest the year before that went wild. The amount of people that entered the contest who wanted to do it, people kind of offering to, like, people wanted to throw money at us to, like, be able to do this experience. And at the time we weren't ready for it, but then the opportunity to dive into the farm more, put more of my time and effort into planning, be able to bring this concept to fruition. And that was how it all came into play that year. And when I wouldn't have been able to do that if I had stayed at my job.
Incredible.
She wouldn't have. Yeah, you wouldn't have been able to focus on that.
No. And Emma had also
had,
I had a 1.5-year-old. Emma had Bobby, her youngest daughter, in March of that year. So she had a real fresh baby going into that summer season. And we started with 3 picnics. We offered 3 dates, thinking, okay, let's just test the waters here. We think that's what we can handle. We will, we'll try it, try to kind of take this one-off experience and scale it. And they sold out, I think, within a couple of days, the tickets for those events. And since that time, you know, we've learned a lot. We've learned what works, what doesn't work. We've made tweaks, improved the experience. We've planted more lavender so that there's more space and we can offer more tables, because I think the one thing that we've noticed is that we just, you know, the demand keeps growing, because you get those magical nights and it just, there's nothing else like it. And people want to buy experiences for people more than things. So this year, going into our 4th picnic year, if you can believe it, we will be offering 15 dates. So
oh my gosh,
from
that's
year
amazing.
1, starting with 3, and this year we're doing 15.
I love that.
We're always at the mercy of Mother Nature. That's our kind of biggest challenge, but we're creative problem solvers. That's what we have learned to do on the job. So we use that in the real world. Yeah.
And you planted more lavender.
We've planted more lavender.
And you've got like the wild.
And we've experimented doing different types of plants as well. So we have planted wildflower fields. The first year it was spectacular. We had poppies and beautiful different types of wildflowers. And it's great because it's kind of an ever growing patch. So we have different things that are sprouting at different times. Last year, we also experimented with doing some zinnias, which are a beautiful, very colorful cut flower. And we've also started a little garden to grow more flowers that we dry so that we can make these dried bouquets that have lavender as well as some other colorful flowers in them too.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yes.
And you've got the bees.
And we've
that
got
make the
bees
honey.
that make honey.
That I love.
We make a lot of our own products too.
Yes.
So we use the lavender that we grow and we do a few different things with it. We either use it for fresh bouquets that we sell in the store. We hang them upside down and dry them for dried bouquets. And we'll mix them in with other flowers too to make some kind of different arrangements. And then we also make essential oil. And the essential oil is a base that we use for a lot of our products. So soaps, perfume, room sprays, candles. We've really started to grow the inventory of products that we sell on the farm. And again, another thing that I now have a lot more time to do because I use the off season to catch up on making those products. Yeah.
It's like
I love that.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. It's like a full soup to nuts. Like you do it all. It's a full family business. Everyone has a part in it to drive the success of it all.
Yes.
And it is really fascinating to watch because you've grown it into such a beautiful business, but also like it is such a gorgeous experience that everyone can experience. I have to say the picnics are exceptional, electric, and every year you'll find me at Purple Hill Lavender like every weekend.
Well, so I work all of the picnics, and every night I'm always amazed by how beautiful it looks. And I am the first person who should get sick of the view, and I never do.
No.
So, and it's probably because I also, have put the blood, sweat, and tears into it. But I do think that it is such an amazing experience, and if you're able to come and enjoy it and have an evening with us, I think you'll like it. But yeah, we try to have fun, and I think that's a part that keeps us going even when it's busy, it's stressful. It's a short season, but we really don't stop for that duration. It's really go, go, go. But the trade-off, of course, is that we have a little bit more flexibility in the winter. So that works well, obviously, with having young kids. And if, you do get the call that they're sick, I'm able to be there for them, which I absolutely love.
Yeah.
And it is a family affair. Like you come into the farm any given day and my dad's giving a tour. Jen's at the gate greeting people. Emma's mother-in-law's dropping off the eye masks that she has hand sewn for us. Like you name it. Like we have such a big network of supporters, of friends and family who, I don't think we would be where we are today without all of you. Even, Tammy, you love the bees and the honey.
I love the bees and the honey.
You do. And also the cross collaboration between your two businesses, which we'll learn about. And I think that's also
I was going to mention that, like we had so many people from Tammy's store, which we will learn about in the next episode. But Tammy sold our products at her store, and the amount of ladies that would come in and they would not only say, we love your products, but we know your whole story. Because the nice lady at Home Interiors told us all about you because she's your neighbor. And we want to come here and see it because we've heard so much about it. And that's just it. You really do get so much love and support from your friends and family. And we wouldn't have been able to do it without you guys.
Yeah. That makes such a difference. It does. Friends, family, community support, everyone together.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good point because even, the town of Creemore has been amazing about embracing us. And we've done a collaboration with Creemore Springs Brewery for our picnics or our festival. And they created a lavender sour to, celebrate lavender season with us. So we have been very fortunate that the community has really just embraced embrace the farm. And we try to, send people into town and talk about how amazing Creemore is, because it is a great day trip. It's a great destination, but there's so much else you can do in the area too.
Totally.
So yeah, it goes both ways.
So what is next for Purple Hill Lavender Farm? Is there anything you can tease out for this summer that we can? I don't know when this episode's dropping. Probably before the summer. So.
Yeah. That's a great question, Jen. So we do have a lot of exciting things that we have planned for this year. We will be releasing our picnic tickets. So back bigger than ever in its 4th year, more dates than we've ever had, more tickets available. We're doing a lot more, larger groups we can accommodate. We've done a lot of, birthday parties or bachelorette parties. It is a great night out with your girlfriends or a date night. So we have a lot of picnics that will be happening. We have a festival that we will be hosting to kick off the peak season. So that will be happening at the end of June. And we have done a festival the past couple of years. I would say what's different about this year is we're making it a lot more interactive. We will have vendors, so artisans in a little maker's market featuring their products. We will have live music, and we will also be offering workshops. So activities for both adults and children, which is very exciting. So there's going to be a lot of action, a lot of things for people to do and see. And it's going to be a weekend long. In the past, we've done just one-day festival. But our season is so short, so we really wanted to kind of lean in and kick off the season with a big bang and offer, lots more opportunities to see and experience the farm. We have a few other surprises up our sleeve, which I'm not going to tease out just yet because we have to see how the spring goes and how our plans take root. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
But I will definitely share more details when we can move forward with those plans.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to all this.
I know.
I did a lot of talking.
I love this.
So
but I think we've learned a lot, which is amazing. And which is, I think the last thing that we want to hear about is just around you talked about your family and the family supporting you behind how do you have time to do it all still? How
Jen, that's a great question. Some days I ask myself the same thing.
Right. Okay.
Because
organization calendars.
Yes.
Coding.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And actually a tip that I learned from Chris and Tammy, because I have asked them as well. They are also very busy people. I'm like, okay, how do you do it? Do you have certain days where you focus on one thing?
Ooh.
And I have found that to be a very helpful tip because it does help me compartmentalize and make things smaller and more actionable. So because we obviously still have Spencer's restaurant, we do some other short-term rental properties, and I have been doing a little bit of consulting on the side. So when I think about my to-do list, I do break it out into different categories, and I try to kind of segment my time based on day. So, today we were meeting, I wanted to organize my files and focus on podcast work and getting all of that lined up. And then tomorrow I'm doing some production with my dad. We're making room sprays. So I've got my day planned out like that. Yes. So I do try to do that. It doesn't always work, but blocking my calendar I find helps.
Love.
Yeah. Although when it gets to the summer season, it's kind of full on lavender all the time, but...
Totally. If you want to see Jess, go to the Lavender Farm.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly.
Because that's full on.
It is.
Right? Monday to Sunday.
Yeah.
Right?
It's hard not to be there because there's stuff going on all the time. And again, I've said it's a short season, but it really is full on the whole time. But the trade-off is getting more flexibility the rest of the year. Right. So to me, it's a nice balance. Yeah.
And I know being there, yes, you have your kids. I know being there for your dad, right?
Yes.
Helping him with whatever he needs as
also
well.
So true.
Because Emma is, Emma's out west.
Yeah.
And then when she comes home, it's so great. You can both work together on it.
Totally.
But then I know, you
So
have to help him
that's
as well.
another good point. Yeah. Which for those of you who don't know, Emma, who's my business partner with my dad, does spend half of her year in Squamish, BC. So she's also very lucky that she can come home for the whole summer.
Yes.
So it's hard for her when she's not here, especially with everything that has gone on with my dad, feeling like she's so removed. But, the benefit of FaceTime and phone calls, and, she has been the first one to jump on a plane when he's been in the hospital and arrived later that day. So we're lucky that the position that we're in gives us the flexibility for our families. Working from home, I am able to be there for him. Plus, we're working together, so it really has a lot of benefits. Yeah,
For sure, I love that.
I know. Yeah,
so I
together.
did learn something new about you.
What was okay? Now I have a question for you both. What was the most surprising thing that you learned? Was it the tobacco farming? Isn't it?
The tobacco farming.
Tobacco farming. I had no idea.
Well, no, and Creemore with the shutters. Like that was shuttered up. There was only the pharmacy.
That's so. I have to play innocent that I just recently heard this story. So if this was like if we did this podcast 6 months ago, that would have been a fun new fact.
Yes.
But one night, Brian and I were having some wine, and that came.
Had he told you?
Yeah,
that?
he told me the whole
Oh
thing,
my goodness.
and I was like, I love hearing all about this. But that was new information. But the tobacco didn't come out.
No.
Yeah.
That was new.
You will
I
have
didn't
to
know
ask him
that.
about that.
I
That was
will.
his first experience in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah.
But he loved it because it's what brought him here.
Yes. Yeah. I don't think he loved the tobacco picking because I think it was a very dirty job.
Sure.
Like you get a lot of tar all over your hands.
Yes.
But he did see how vast Canada was and the opportunity. And he was here during the summer. The summers are amazing.
They are.
So yeah. Yeah, that's
Well,
the
thank
story.
God that Brian and
know.
Bobby moved to
That's
Canada.
right.
I know.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness that all worked
Thank
out.
goodness. Thank goodness.
And
That
he
all worked
stayed,
out.
There's a lot of times after my mom died where he kind of debated on whether to move somewhere else. But we were because we also, my parents built a house and that's where the farm is. So that was also a reason we were so attached to it because it felt like a piece of her history. And we didn't want to give that up. You hold on to the things that you cherish. Not that you should hold on to the past, but for us, it was a way of cherishing her memory.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the farm does. The barn where we have our store is her old horse barn. It feels like, in a way, it's a bit of a tribute to her memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just keeps her close to your heart.
It really
Always.
does.
And I
Yeah.
think that's
And
special.
yeah, in a way it grounds me a lot too, I find, of like remembering what's important, which is, your family and your friends. And being outside in nature just does something to you. I think we talked about this on the episode about your health journey,
Totally.
about how it's so good for your mindset. And we didn't have that when we were working at a desk job.
No.
And you really had to carve out time for it. Whereas now, even though it's hot and long days and you're, out in the sun, it really does feel like you have accomplished something when you see this little tiny sprout become a gorgeous plant and then all the people that get to come and enjoy it.
And that's the thing. People love to go there. They
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, they love the experience and you're outside and just
to
the
your
colors,
point
like
about
everything you take in.
Yeah. And the bees, when you come and it's in peak bloom, the plants are absolutely covered in bees collecting nectar. And I didn't know this, but there's different sound frequencies. And the sound frequency that bees make is actually a healing sound.
I believe that.
So when you come to the farm and you're sitting amongst the lavender, whether it's during the day or at a picnic, and you hear the bees buzzing and you feel this sense of calm and peace, it's because that vibration and the sound that they're emitting really does create that reaction in your body.
See,
So
I
something
learned that
else.
too. I didn't know that. Did you?
I
did not
know that. But I can appreciate that and I can
You can
see how
believe
that's
it.
possible. I can believe it.
I didn't make it up.
Yes.
I know. Listen.
I'm going to actually take that in next time I'm there.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm going to actually try to sit and
Oh, that's
Absorb.
inspiring.
yeah,
Yes.
and take that in, because I mean, and they're so peaceful. They're doing their little work.
And they don't bother you.
Right?
That's probably the number one question we do get asked, actually, when it comes to our picnics, is whether or not the bees are going to bother you. And what I tell people is I'm there day in and day out, stepping over the plants, setting tables, running up and down the rows. Not once have I ever been stung. So you mind your own beeswax and they will mind theirs. Well, let's wrap it up there. Thanks for tuning in. Really appreciate everybody listening as I shared my story. Tune in for next week. We're going to dive into Tammy Millsap and everything that we want to know about her. We can't wait. I'm sure there will be some surprises for Jen and I as well. And thanks for listening.